It was a cold, foggy evening in the small town of Willowbrook. The streets were empty, and the only sound was the occasional rustle of leaves as the wind swept through the trees. Detective Arthur Lane sat in his dimly lit office, sipping on a cup of steaming coffee. Clock on the wall ticked loudly, breaking the silence. He was about to call it a night when there was a sharp knock on the door. "Come in," he called, setting his cup down. The door creaked open, and a young woman stepped inside. She was dressed in a heavy coat, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. "Detective Lane, I need your help," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, sit down," Arthur said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "What's the matter?" The woman sat down and took a deep breath. "My name is Clara Bennett. My uncle, Mr. Harold Whitaker, was found dead this morning. The police say it was a heart attack, but I know it wasn't. Something isn't right." Arthur leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What makes you think it wasn't a heart attack?" Clara hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper. "I found this in his study. It was hidden under his desk." Arthur took the paper and unfolded it. Written in shaky handwriting were the words, "The chill is coming for me." "What does this mean?" Arthur asked, frowning. "I don't know," Claire replied. "But my uncle was a healthy man. He had no history of heart problems. And lately, he'd been acting strange, locking doors, staying up all night, talking about feeling cold all the time. I think someone or something killed him." Arthur studied the note carefully. It was cryptic, but it was enough to raise suspicions. "I'll look into it," he said finally. "Where did your uncle live?" "At Whitaker Manor, just outside town," Clara said. "I can take you there tomorrow morning." Arthur nodded. "First thing tomorrow, then." The next morning, Arthur and Clara drove to Whitaker Manor. The house was an old, imposing structure, surrounded by tall trees. As they approached, Arthur couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over him. The air was colder here, and the fog seemed thicker. Clara led him inside, where the housekeeper, Mrs. Graves, greeted them. She was a stern-looking woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude. "Mrs. Graves, this is Detective Lane," Clara said. "He's here to investigate Uncle Harold's death." Mrs. Graves gave Arthur a curt nod. "I'll show you to his study." The study was a large room filled with bookshelves, a grand desk, and a fireplace. Arthur immediately noticed how cold the room was, despite the fire burning in the hearth. Was the room always this cold? Arthur asked. Mrs. Graves shook her head. "No, it's been like this since Mr. Whitaker's death. No matter how much we heat it, the cold never goes away." Arthur walked over to the desk and began examining it. He found nothing unusual at first, but then he noticed a small, almost invisible scratch on the floor near the desk. He knelt down and ran his fingers over it. "This scratch, it looks recent," he muttered. Clara and Mrs. Graves exchanged puzzled looks. "What does it mean?" Clara asked. "It means someone moved this desk recently," Arthur said. He stood up and began pushing the desk aside. As he did, a hidden compartment in the floor was revealed. Inside was a small, ornate box. Arthur opened the box and found a collection of old letters and photographs. One of the photographs caught his eye. It was a picture of Harold Whitaker with a group of people, all dressed in old-fashioned clothing. Written on the back of the photo were the words, "The Society of the Frozen Hand." "What's this?" Arthur asked, showing the photo to Clara. Clara's eyes widened. "I've never seen this before." "What's the Society of the Frozen Hand?" "I don't know. Arthur said, "but I think it's connected to your uncle's death." As he continued to sift through the letters, he found one that stood out. It was dated just a week before Harold's death and read, "Dear Harold, the chill is coming for all of us. You know what we did, and now it's time to pay. The frozen hand never forgets." Arthur's heart raced. This was no ordinary death. It was a message, a warning. "We need to find out more about this Society of the Frozen Hand," Arthur said. "Do you know anyone else in the photo?" Clara shook her head. "No, but maybe Mrs. Graves does." They called Mrs. Graves back into the study and showed her the photo. Her face turned pale. "I recognize some of these people," she said slowly. "They were friends of Mr. Whitaker from many years ago, but they're all dead now. They died under mysterious circumstances." Arthur's mind raced. This Society of the Frozen Hand, it's some kind of secret group, and whoever's left is targeting its members. "But why?" Clara asked. "That's what we need to find out," Arthur said. Over the next few days, Arthur dug deeper into the mystery. He discovered that the Society of the Frozen Hand was a group of wealthy individuals who had made a pact decades ago. The details were unclear, but it seemed they had done something terrible, something they had sworn to take to their graves. One by one, the members of the society had died, each death marked by the same chilling note: "The chill is coming for me." Arthur realized that Harold Whitaker had been the last surviving member, and now he was gone too. But the mystery didn't end there. As Arthur continued his investigation, he began to feel the same cold that had plagued Harold. It started as a slight chill, but soon it was unbearable, no matter how many layers he wore. One night, as he sat in his office, he heard a faint whisper, "The chill is coming for you." Arthur turned around, but no one was there. The room was freezing, and his breath came out in visible puffs. He knew then that the Society of the Frozen Hand wasn't just a group of people, it was a curse. And now it had come for him. The next morning, Claire found Arthur's office empty. His coat was still on the chair, and his coffee cup was half full, but there was no sign of him. On his desk was a single note, written in the same shaky handwriting as Harold's. "The chill has taken me," Clara shuddered as she read the words. She knew the mystery of the Society of the Frozen Hand would remain unsolved, buried in the cold, dark shadows of the past. And somewhere, in the depths of the foggy town of Willowbrook, the chill still lingered, waiting for its next victim.